I got a update to my lab here. I actually purchased this ATTEN ST862D hot air rework station. And I thought I'd do a quick little review on it. I think there's other reviews on YouTube elsewhere. I'm not too sure. I think there are, but in any case, this is a latest version. It actually comes with version 4, as you just saw flashing up there, of the firmware. So it actually behaves a tiny bit different than the original ones. They've made some improvements on it, I think. And what I had before was I had one of these types of, well, maybe I can hold it here, these types of hot air gun, which has internally in it a little fan and a heating element. But these guys, they are maybe 700 watts or something like that, and there's been a few instances where I did not have enough heat, so I decided to get an upgrade. And anyway, as you can see, these guys they just have a little flexible cord to provide power, but as I said, the actual fan is inside here, and that's one of the limitations. And these kind of workstations here, they have both the heating element in there, and they have a hose that the air actually comes through the hose, and it has as you can see, I've already opened it up here, like a squirrel fan, whatever they call these things in here. So it just has more power to provide airflow. So I bought it on AliExpress, and I actually bought this version. It actually came with an extra heating element. You never know in future if you cannot get stuff from China anymore or something. You never know what happens in this world. Then I have a spare heating element. I thought that was a good idea. Now these things come with a, maybe I can get it like that. They come with an adapter here, so all the nozzles that came with my old system I can actually put on there. So I have quite a range of nozzles now, square ones, round ones, and what have you. I've been impressed with the ATTEN stuff. I have actually also purchased a second ST1509 soldering station so that I can have a pair of hot tweezers and one of their soldering irons online at the same time, which is helpful, so I don't have to swap them over on the one station. In any case, it comes with a manual like so. It's pretty concise. There's not that many pages to it. Mostly the English is understandable. There's a few spots where you kind of got to read it twice and try to interpret it. Where is it now? Menu mode. You push the two buttons here, and then you can push you can select Celsius or Fahrenheit. Why on earth you would want Fahrenheit for escapes me. You can actually reset it to factory. A calibration. I have calibrated it and I decided to increase the temperature by 12 degrees. for this particular heating element. Turns off on you the menu. This is a setting that you can turn on. This one is not important. Standby I turned on, which allows you to normal operation, allows you to remove the nozzle from the stand, and then it can turn on or off automatically, which is kind of a feature that I like, but you can turn that off over here. Anyway, fairly simple, very simple operation, which is one of the things I like about it. You can actually pre-select as set temperature 1 to 300, temperature to 350, temperature 2 rather, and temperature 3 to 400. So I can hit the buttons, but you can also increase the air if you want to. You can increase the temperature just by hitting those buttons, and it'll take effect right now if you're going to use it. And once that is on the screen, if you hold one of these buttons down for 3 seconds, it'll actually store it in there. So it's very simple, very nice. Okay, so let's have a look inside. I'll just focus a camera on it and we'll discuss what's in there. Okay, so on the input there is some filtering over here and some one of these Y capacitors and so on to stop noise and glitches and so on from getting in. So there's AC in and AC out. Pretty simple stuff. There is actually a transformer here which has 7 volts and what is it now, 24 volts, 18 volts, 9 volts, different voltages that it supplies for the different parts of the circuit. I suspect that this fan here runs at 24 volts and probably AC from directly from there. I'm not 100% sure, but in any case, that is how that works. Let me see if I can align it so that we can see the circuit board. Let me get a bit of light on there. Okay, this too is relatively understandable. There's a microcontroller over here, and right in the back here, that's a linear voltage controller over there, LM3117 or whatever it is. And our friend over here is an LM2596. We've been making buck regulators with that thing on other videos, so we're well familiar with that one. The 2 capacitors that it needs, an inductor over there. So that's all power supply stuff. There is a heavy duty relay over here that can handle up to 12 amps or something. And here is a large, I'm not sure, I can't really read it. I'm not sure if this is a MOSFET or a thyristor for perhaps controlling the voltage on the squirrel fan here, possibly. In any case, there's not much else to say. These are just, they're all like power supply sections, and I said there's a microcontroller there, and there would have to be probably over here. Let me see, what is that? It's probably a little memory chip there for containing the settings. So that's fairly straightforward, should be easy to service if I ever have to. I'll kind of understand what's in there. it comes with a I have connected up a like a watt meter over here. We're gonna run it and see how many watts it draws. I've put up an old little PC board here, but I'm not gonna actually take components off of this one. But I've got the temperature probe for my multimeter over here. We're gonna see what the temperature is like, and let's discuss a few more things about this. Let me change cameras. So it comes with a nice heavy-duty, heavy, probably cast iron or something like that stand, and it has to be heavy so it doesn't, fall over, or it provides stability. Normally the handle sits like this, and it will turn it. Because the way I've got it configured, it'll turn off automatically as soon as you put it in the stand. But if you don't want it to turn off, you can also, of course, put it in like that. But I can't see why you want to, because it heats up very quickly. So let's try it out. So let's set it for 350. And what you do is, to get it started, there is a little button here on the handle. So there it goes. All right. So I've got the top right hand corner there. We can see temperature there. So if I put it on the let me get the other. The airflow is 50%. There we go. So I have now to put it back in the stand. See, it turns off automatically. And as soon as it gets to 100 degrees, it turns off. There we go. So I've calibrated it so it is a little bit higher than what it says on the screen here when you hold the nozzle right next to the circuit board. But usually we use these things and move it around and have it a little bit further away from the circuit board. So then, as you may have seen, the temperature quickly drops to 340. So that's why I put it a little bit higher, so that I'll get the temperature that I've selected, even with a couple of centimeters away from the circuit board. Now, if I pick up the probe again, now I've got it set. I've configured it so that within 10 minutes, if you pick it up, it will go to the last setting and it's turned back on again, and you put it back in here and it turns off again without having to push any buttons. Which is a really neat feature. If you are reworking a PCB, sometimes you got to heat it up, then do something, and then continue again, and you don't have to worry about turning it on and off and so on. It does it automatically for you. Really nice. Okay, so let's have a look now at the how much power it is using. Okay, so without just being turned on with no air and heat being produced, it actually is drawing 5.3 watts. So let's have a look how many watts it draws. Well, at 350 degrees, it's 50%. Let's increase the air to 100%. Okay, so at 350 it's 400 or 500 watts. It seems to settle down to just over 400 watts. Now if I turn the temperature up to the maximum, or flashed up there for a little bit, like almost 1000 watts, which is its maximum rating. And now it settles at 538. Now it's cooling down. The fan itself seems to be drawing about 10 watts or something, or 11 watts. All right. So we have determined that it does draw about 1000 watts when it starts heating at maximum temperature, which is 480, but it settles into 550 watts or something like that at maximum temperature, maximum airflow, which is okay, except we're going to try to remove some chips now and see how well that it works. Okay, well, I focused the camera on this PCB, and there's a couple of likely suspects on there that we can work on, and this big chip over here is obviously some sort of VGA chip, and so I'll put a little bit of flux in there. Now this is not going to be a necessarily a prime recommended way that I would remove this thing, because look, if this was a board that I'd have to repair and have to replace this chip, there are little capacitors rise and components right near it, and I normally would use my Rework preheat station that put the board on, and then depending on what's on the other side of the board, there isn't much there that would melt or anything. There's just components on there. I might preheat the whole board to 150 or 200 degrees and then add a little hot air on the top, or I could use the UV station that I have that doesn't even use hot air, and this chip would come off fairly easily. But just for the sake of seeing what we can do with this ATTEN station, we are going to try it just like that. Okay, I'm going to set it to 60% air, 400 degrees, see what happens. I'll have to heat the whole thing up. Okay, that came off all right. I think I did a good job. All the little balls on there. Now I don't have it under the microscope, I just have it under the camera here at maximum zoom, but the little balls look very nice. So really, you could clean that up and put a new chip on there, no problems. Okay, so what else do we have on there? Now I actually increased the heat to about 450 because in those kind of chips, you know, it's got to heat right through the chip there. Let's go back to 400. This is some sort of memory chip. Okay, another one that's a successful. Now I'm wondering about, there's a little crystal here. I can actually use that somewhere else. I've reduced the temperature to 350. I shouldn't need as much heat for that, and the airflow is 50. There we go. While we're at it, let's have a look. This is some sort of little MOSFET. Didn't even put any flux on this one. All right. A good hot air station is absolutely necessary nowadays to deal with some of these surface mount components. And as you can see, it really makes quite easy work at these things. And also notice that we didn't even touch these little components here. They're still in place, which is good. I was worried that they would be coming off, but you'd have to be careful, you know, if you remove the chip. Now you notice I have a bunch of different tweezers here that I use for different purposes. These are the El Cheapo Chinese ones, which I only use for fairly crude work. Here is some very fine ones that I use for very small components. It's actually made in Switzerland. These are very high quality, and these ones here I find very handy too. They are flat ones, and you can hold on to components pretty nicely with that. Now some of these components here, of course, I would remove with the hot tweezers if I was working on this board. I wouldn't necessarily use hot air. Sometimes you can use some hot air at maybe 350 with relatively low airflow. In some instances, if you're near components that could get damaged, like capacitors or something that can't take a lot of heat, then you can actually use some hot tweezers and a little bit of hot air at the same time. It all depends. In any case, I think that kind of concludes the hot air station review. I am very pleased with the thing. It works very well. As I said, I have a bunch of these ATTEN stations now. So this is my soldering caddy, and as you can see, I have two ST9150 stations. One is connected to a soldering iron, and the other one's connected to a hot tweezer, so I can use both at the same time. That's why I bought two of them. I like to have them on. I have the T12 stations. I use those as well. I especially use them with those spade tips for removing things. I have a bunch of these T12 tips, and I'm particularly fond of these little spade tips here. You can actually, I use two of them at the same time, and I can actually remove chips without having to use. It's almost like having hot tweezers. You can lift the chips off the board very easily with those. You'll see me using those. Anyway, so that's what I have, and of course the hot air station. I put it up there already. It lives up there now. Oops, it's hard to maneuver this camera here. There it is. Okay, so I think that finishes the review. As I said, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm always looking for extra subscribers because I don't have all that many. And I'll see you guys in the next video.